Brochim Habayim, welcome. My name's Wayne Firestone, and it is Tuesday, and you are here with us at the America Israel Friendship League doing a webinar. We had to make a little adjustment this week with Thanksgiving week and everybody traveling on Wednesdays. We thought it would be worthwhile to sort of mix it up a little bit. We did want to make sure we touched base, checked in. And I think particularly in this period that has been so difficult, we wanted to give you something to be thankful for, grateful for, in what's been an unprecedented, difficult period for Israel, Israelis, and for lovers of Israel around the world. We have people calling in. I see Sylvia and Renana. We have people in Durham, North Carolina. As always, we have people, Ofra, Israel, as well. So we have people checking in. Yay, Boca Raton. We have people from around the world with us today. Some are celebrating Thanksgiving later in the week with families. Others are not familiar or with the American tradition. Hi, Nora in Philadelphia. I would like to ask, as we sort of open this episode, which I'll introduce in a moment, I think whether or not you celebrate Thanksgiving or whether or not you've really having a hard time just sort of getting out from under the covers of the news, something that you're grateful for. Share something as part of this family being together, this extended family. It really is remarkable how having other people around you and sharing your feelings, sharing your thoughts during even difficult moments, we know as part of the America-Israel relationship has been a part of that journey. And indeed, this has been a time that has been incredibly difficult for all of us. Our friends in Canada, Vancouver, are checking in. Our friends really are around the world, and it means a lot to have people stand up and stand together in good times and in more difficult times. So put some thought, maybe even just a word or two of something you're grateful for this year in particular, whether that's Diane, who's just grateful for family and grateful for that every year, or you're grateful for the opportunity for this episode that we're about to see. I'm grateful for this. I want to introduce, for those of you that haven't met him, Shahar Fertig, who is our master tour guide, has taken us to some incredible places in Israel and places that Israelis go to. The last time we spoke, he was in India and with his family on a tiyul, on a trek. He came back to Israel for Rosh Hashanah, for the new year. And Shachar, I know we have talked in the past about putting more highlight on the Kibbutzim, on the Chalutzim, on the Moshavim, on the people who have really played a historic role. I don't think we ever imagined that we would have to do that with the kind of dynamics that are required since October 7th. So first of all, let me just welcome you back to our program and begin by asking you, even in this most difficult time, what you're grateful for as we begin to think about how to tell this story today in a more nuanced way.
Many times when people ask me here in Israel, hi Shachar, how are you? And so in the first days we answered how horrible is our reality. And slowly I started to answer, I'm fine. My children are sleeping in bed at night. I can see them, I can kiss them, I can hug them, and so my personal situation is okay. But and I'm grateful for this every second. I'm grateful for being here with you, which is a little of a sense of normality for me. And as of course the tourism industry is again dead in Israel completely. And still in that moment, when I'm thankful for my children being here and healthy and happy, I cannot stop thinking about the ones who are not. Yes.
And again, I think any honest conversation right now involves both pain and appreciation, and a recognition that in Israel that has been a part of the Israeli journey, the Israeli story for some time. And there are people who have helped guide that story in a way that creates both inspiration and meaning for those of us that are not physically with you now at this moment. And I know from the many programs that we've had together that it's hard to talk about Israel only in terms of the present tense and each moment without understanding the context and, frankly, the people whose shoulders we stand on to be able to tell the stories of today. And I think I know you have a rich collection of photographs and videos and maps to share with us, as you always do, in introducing different regions, different special places in Israel. And today's no exception, but it also includes an extra level of appreciation for some of the people both who had to rise to the occasion on October 7th and since October 7th, as well as some people who we lost that day. And telling that story without sharing all the aspects of it would feel like, I guess, inauthentic today. So with great appreciation for the thought that you put into this, let's go ahead and begin the journey. When we were preparing for this, your very first slide took my breath away. So I'm excited to again go on this journey with you today, Shahar.
Yes, thank you, Wayne. As we speak and I read a little bit of your chat, and thanks. I think also about I read Marion from Modi'in talking about the IDF soldiers, and I'm thinking about the unity of our people that are coming together from every sides of the society to fight back, and also to hold the civilian structure and the health of our society and the people and survivors and economy. And we are going to talk about it through the slide also, through the presentation that I prepared. A few weeks ago, Brian, my father-in-law, said, Shahar, why don't you make one webinar for for the history and the honor of the people who live in the envelope of Gaza. And here we are with you. So when you look at the history of the people, of the pioneers settling around the Gaza Strip, since 1943 were the first settlers, and 1946 was another wave of settling. And in the first years, the settlers describe a very good relationship with the Bedouin, with the local Bedouin, the Muslim Arabs that lived around them. On the lands that were purchased by JNF and mainly by the JNF. This picture where we begin our presentation with is Nativ HaAsara. It's a village that was established in the southern part of the Gaza Strip after Sinai was taken by Israel in the 6 Days War. And a little picture of a Shavuot celebration in Karmia, in the north of the Gaza Strip from 1965, with the happiness and joy and the branches of olive trees surround them. Before we dive into the maps and into the history, we can see this blossom of the anemone flowers that are the symbol of the Gaza Envelope. The Gaza Envelope are the villages, kibbutz, and towns that are around the Gaza Strip. And in the last maybe 15 or even 20 years, those anemones, which are naturally growing there, were the farmers of the villages and the kibbutz used to put the seeds and to help them grow. It's a plant that is it was under threat in Israel, and from being under threat, it became a huge festival every winter, as dozens and hundreds of thousands of people in Israel come to see in February the blossom of the anemone around the villages and the kibbutz. These anemones now became a symbol of the death and the slaughter of Simchat Torah. And you can see this stamp, maybe some of you recognize it from the Yom HaZikaron, from the Memorial Day for our soldiers. But there it is another flower, which is called Dam HaMaccabim, the blood of the Maccabites. And here it was changed to the Kalanit, the anemone, which symbolize the Gaza envelope. If we look at some maps, you can see this green line symbolizes the West Bank or the mountains of Judea around Hebron and Jerusalem. The blue line here symbolizes the border with Egypt since the peace treaty with Egypt was done. I marked here Yamit area, which is in Sinai. This was a place where Israeli settlers settled between 1967 to 1982 in a belief that a future peace treaty will they will be able to stay and live in this desert. The Gaza Strip itself, as it was held by the Egyptians until 1967, and after 1967 by Israel. And around it, you can see, I marked some names, Be'eri, which is known that is the kibbutz that suffered the most horrible attacks in the 7th of October, which was established together with 10 other villages in the kibbutz in 1946, Gvulot in 1943, Sderot in 1951, and then Netiv HaAsara, which we began our presentation with. So mark these places for the rest of the presentation because we are going to go back to them. And this is the area that is called the Gaza Envelope, and for a little bit of a proportion, this is 21 miles between these two lines that are marked. And here in this map, you can see again the Gaza Strip, and around it lines that represent different types of different distances from the Gaza Strip. And each line is a different type of a rocket where it can get. And this is something that we were talking a lot about before the 7th of October, which we were talking about the rockets. The people who live here in Sderot and in the villages and the kibbutz closest to Gaza Strip, the rockets are coming so fast, then the people and the children have 15 seconds to take shelter. Today, all this area, which is inside this orange line, there is nobody there. Nobody lives there today. Only the army, and sometimes volunteers are allowed to go in to fix things. But all this area was evacuated by Israel, and the people the survivors from here and the people who lived here are now in different places in Jerusalem, in Eilat, in Tanya, in different hotels and hosted in people's houses. So, and if we say that the orange line is 15 seconds, so here around Yavne, where I was raised, this is a minute and a half. You have a minute and a half to run for shelter, a long time. And this is the situation of the Gaza Strip since 2006, in the Second Lebanon War, and the disengagement from Gaza. We will focus on the northern part of the Gaza envelope here. You can see Sderot, Nir Am, Nachal Oz, and Netiv HaAsara. And some pictures of normal days. This is a tour I took families some years ago. You can see the children are playing in the sands. These beautiful dunes, pastoralic dunes, are a part of a nature reserve called Karmia, after one of the villages next to it. And over there, people can go through beautiful nature, see animals, see flowers. The children roll in the sands, and then on the top of the dune, you see the wall. You see the wall to Gaza. Some days it can be peaceful. It used to be peaceful. You can see the antennas there on the left horizon. This is that marks the border with Gaza. And you can see the village Karmia there on the right with a few of its roofs. And you can see some of the beautiful nature that was there, the Israeli iris, the medicinal beetle, the lizards, and really a wonderful place to be. Even you can float on the Shikma River all the way to the beach of Zikim and fish there. And all these places became, including this beach, became places of attacks in the 7th of October. So these are all pictures from normal days. Also on less normal days, but before the 7th of October, for some years, we had this problem of the terrorists making balloons and kites, which incinerate the fields. So when they land across the border, the beautiful nature reserve that I showed you the pictures was completely burnt. The fields of wheat were burnt. They sent them on the dry days when all the wheat is ripe to just before the harvest. And this is not a normal day, but this was every here and then before the 7th of October for some years. So when I talk about, this is a view to Ashkelon, this is the power plant of Ashkelon that gives electricity to the Gaza Strip, and the Zikim beach, beautiful, one of the most beautiful beaches. And when we talk about the people who chose to live around the Gaza Strip, as we call it, the Gaza Envelope, since all its history, since the War of Independence, they had beautiful periods of blossom and success, and every here and there a tragedy and attack from different kinds. So the life there, as a tourist guide, I used to come there almost every tour comes to visit. When you come for 7 days or 10 days, we come to visit the Gaza Envelope briefly to have a look into Gaza, and then to go away and stay in something in a place which is safer, because tourists don't want to wake up with an alarm in the middle of the night. So our visits were always short there, and only if it was safe. And this is the picture of Be'erot Yitzhak, a kibbutz that was established in 1943. And in the War of Independence, it was attacked and destroyed. And the people who established it in Be'erot Yitzhak, they said, that's enough for us. We don't want to live there anymore. It's completely destroyed, and they moved and re-established Be'erot Yitzhak next to Petach Tikva, where it is until today. But later, in 1951, came a new group from the Nachal and established Nachal Oz on the ruins of Be'erot Yitzhak. On the right, you can see the water tank that provide water pressure for the kibbutz, and which is standing until today as a monument for the War of Independence. All these bullet holes and shell holes are a memory from that war. Nachal Oz. So here is another picture from the first years of Nachal Oz, and here is Ben Gurion, and on the left with Shimon Peres on the right. They come to see the pioneers of Nachal Oz resettling on the lands of Be'erot Yitzhak. And after his visit, Ben Gurion sends a message to the people of Nachal Oz. By the way, Nachal in Hebrew is a stream, and Oz is bravery, courage. And so in the 10th anniversary to the kibbutz, Nachal Oz, the stream of bravery, and Ben Gurion writes, everyone that has the pioneer spark in its heart is happy to celebrate the 10th anniversary. I don't know if you have a stream, because it's a desert. I don't know if you have a stream, but bravery for sure in abundance. Keep on with bravery, with courage, and succeed. So this was the blessing of David Ben Gurion in 1961. And this comes 5 years after a story of Roy Rothberg. Roy Rothberg was the security coordinator of Nachal Oz. And here you can see him on the right seated on his horse, named Amalia, female horse, and in the fields around Gaza. He was born in 1935 and raised in Tel Aviv, and he chose to move as a pioneer and live there around in Nachal Oz, next to the Gaza Strip, which was Egyptian by then. And back then, there was no fence in the border. There was only a furrow. And this furrow, the last furrow, was the border, was symbolizing the border. And every year, the farmers had to go back and plow this furrow to mark the place of the border. So here is a little bit, you can see here in the middle, again, Roy, with his wife in the in the clinic of the kibbutz Nachal Oz. You can see the blossom of the flowers already, and here they are on the wedding day, Roy and Amira, and they had a baby boy, Boaz, and Roy. One day there was supposed to be on the 29th of April 1956, 4 weddings were prepared in the kibbutz, and in this period they used to marry a few couples together. They brought one rabbi to marry them all together. It's also a communal idea of the kibbutz, and there was somebody saw Arab people from Gaza, shepherds and others that were shooting toward the kibbutz, and Roy took his horse and his gun and rode into the fields, and there they ambushed him, an Egyptian policeman and other people that were with him were hiding there. They shot him. They took his body into the Gaza Strip, which was Egypt by then, across the border. His body was abused and was dragged in the streets of Gaza, and this is 1956. And Moshe Dayan, that came that day for the weddings, he stayed instead for the funeral of Ro'i and wrote one of the most important and famous texts in the Zionist history. And I will read just a little bit of it. It's much longer than the text that I put here, of course. And he says, he did not see those waiting in ambush for him at the edge of the furrow. How did we shut our eyes and refuse to look square at our fate and see in all its brutality the destiny of our generation? Have we forgotten that this group of young people dwelling at Nahal Oz is bearing the heavy gates of Gaza on its shoulders? Beyond the furrow of the border, a sea of hatred and desire for revenge is swelling, awaiting the day when serenity will dull our path, and the day when we will heed the ambassadors of malevolent hypocrisy who call upon us to lay down our arms. And so I read this text, and it's a historical text, and it's one person that was murdered back then. And of course, this text is so relevant today. In order to get his body back, the United Nations had to be involved. The Israeli government had to threaten Egypt in attack, and his body was retrieved through the fields for the burial. The story of Ro'i Rothberg, leaving his wife and the baby boy behind. And from, again, Nahal Oz, another person, another hero. And this is the story of Shlomo Ron, born 1938. And he moved to Nahal Oz when he was 20 years old, 1958. And he's telling he was a soldier in the Nahal, in a brigade that was supposed to be sent with parachutes over the border in case of war. And he chose to come and live in Nahal Oz again as a pioneer. Young, the kibbutz was 7 years old when he came there. And he's telling you how, as 20 years old man, he was enthusiastic. He wanted to work in the fields, but instead they sent him to work with the cows, and he was disappointed. And one day at work, he described these stories from his memory, and it was published last summer in a program which is called Multi-Generational Fashion. And he described how after the hard work with the cows, carrying a lot of weight of hay, the worker, the kibbutz member that worked with him told him, "Come, let's have a drink." And they go to the hose, to the tap, and Shlomo was expecting water to come out, but instead, out of the tap, he's surprised to see the milk of the cows, and his friend is offering him a big cup of milk to drink. And Shlomo was later in his as a young man. He described also the beauty of the young men and women and how they lay down on the grass and meet each other and dance with each other and sing with each other like young people should. And later he grew up. He had 3 children and 1 grandson, and he liked theater and arts. And he described himself, and the people described him as a soft, gentle person, growing old, growing sick. He had a worker with him to care for him because he was already sick. And as the attack in the 7th of October began, and the people hid in their shelters in the house, because in this region, because of the rockets, every house had a shelter. And everybody were hiding in the shelters, understanding that the terrorists invaded Nahal Oz and are killing the people. And Shlomo told his family, his two daughters, and the grandchild, and his worker, all of them that came to be with him for the weekend. It wasn't a normal weekend. They came to visit him for the weekend, for the Chag, for the Simchat Torah. And he told them, go hide in the shelter. And he went himself, he went out to the living room of his house. He laid in his couch and he waited for the terrorists to come. And when the terrorists came, they shot him. He died, and his wife Hannah, that came from Kibbutz Kinneret in the north to live with him. She said, this is how he was. He was kind and brave, and even in his super old age, 85 years old, he protected them with his body. And the terrorist came inside and probably thought that he is an old man living alone. They shot him and left. And so his family and his wife were saved. And his wife was hosted in Kibbutz Kinneret, the place where she was raised. She's there now. He was buried in the cemetery of Kinneret next to Rachel, the poet, and Naomi Shemer, the poets that he loved. Maybe I was crying so many times preparing this presentation and reading the story of this simple I don't know if simple is the right word, but I would say simple and unbelievable courage and sacrifice.
We can say Gibur. We can say hero. This is a heroic act that you're sharing, and well worth preserving this memory.
Yes. So that was the story of Nahal Oz and the stream of bravery. And here we are going back to the map. We see on the left Bet Hanun, a neighborhood to the east of Gaza. You can see the border of the Armistice Agreement from 1950 with Egypt. But today, the border with the Gazans. And you can see the distance from the wall and the fence of Gaza and Sderot, this distance that is less than a mile. And in the last, since 2006, so 17 years, the Second Lebanon War began in 2006 as the Hamas dug attack tunnels under the fence, under the border, and the terrorists went out of the tunnel and kidnapped Gilad Shalit and killed the other soldiers on the tank. And that was 2006, and this is how Second Lebanon War began on the Gazan border. And this phenomenon of the tunnels dug underneath this ground in order to attack the people of Sderot and the people of the kibbutz and the villages was a practice that was made a few times, quite a few times. There were dozens, if not hundreds, of these tunnels until the IDF dug around the fence, deep in the ground until they got to the aquifer, and made a very heavy concrete iron wall into the ground so the Hamas cannot dig these tunnels again. until the 7th of October that they did not use the tunnels, but just broke through the fences in this horrific attack. So we can see here Sderot, the largest town which is closest to Gaza, with 35,000 people living in it. We can see here Nir Am, and here the Asaf Siboni lookout. Asaf Siboni was a soldier. So this is the lookout of Asaf, named after Asaf Siboni. 20 years old fighter that in 1997 went on a helicopter together with 73 other soldiers, two helicopters going to Lebanon, and these two helicopters crashed in each other, and all of the soldiers on them died. So Asaf Siboni was raised in Nir Am, just in front of the Gaza Strip, died in the north of Israel, on the Lebanese border, and here in this piece of bells, they have 20 bells, symbolizing the 20 years of Asaf. And this lookout with the group of American students that you saw there is one of these spots that we use to come and visit and look at Gaza and talk about the situation. And of course, today this spot is a closed military zone, where only the army can go. The lookout of Asaf Siboni from Nir Am. In the 7th of October, this girl, Inbal Rabin Lieberman, a young woman, 25 years old, she is the military security coordinator. Every village and kibbutz around Israel, especially close to the borders, have this security person that is supposed to be the head of the squad, the preparedness squad, that if something happens, they run with their guns and face the terrorists that invade. They are being trained. You can see her here with her dog. It's a military dog that she took with herself from her military service. She served in Oketz, which means a sting. It's a unit where soldiers train their dogs for different missions, usually to find explosives or help them in the battlefields. And this, Inbal is the first female military security coordinator in the Gaza Envelope for the last 23 years. And very quickly, she became a symbol of heroism in the 7th of October because with her instincts as a girl that was born and raised in Nir Am, in this kibbutz, which is just next to Sderot, between Sderot and the Gazan border. She said, I heard the noise of the drones. I heard the shootings. I heard the massive attack of the rockets. And I knew immediately that something is wrong, that something big is happening. Thanks to her experience. That was 6:30 in the morning. She got a phone call from a military person that was not on duty, an officer that told her, prepare yourself, this thing is happening. And she called all the people of the kibbutz to go into their shelters, to lock themselves. She called the preparedness squad to come take the guns, because they usually don't go with the guns on them. Some more people came. She distributed all the guns that she had. She placed the people on the most strategic points around the kibbutz. And thanks to her actions, this is the only kibbutz that nobody got killed and the terrorists did not manage to break in kibbutz Nir Am. another part of her action that is considered a so simple act, but considered brilliant. The electricity line fell. So once there's no electricity, they have a generator to give electricity to the kibbutz. And on her way to distribute the guns, she saw the person that is in charge of turning it on. She asked him, "Where are you going?" "I'm going to turn on the generator." She told him, "Don't do it. Don't do it. Give me 1 hour, because if you turn on the generator, then somebody may open the electric gate and the terrorist may come in." So the electricity was not turned on and the gate stayed closed. And for her actions, Inbal became a hero. And this is a little homage to her in Tel Aviv. I don't know how many of you came to our graffiti tour in Tel Aviv, but here you can see her graffiti and the word Niram. And the gate, you see the yellow gate behind her. But Inbal says, "Listen, I see what you write about me. Don't believe these things." They said she killed 25 terrorists. It wasn't wrong. She said, I'm not a hero. I was not there alone. I was with all the squad and the volunteers. I'm reading to you the text that she wrote, and it's here on the left in Hebrew. "I'm still trying to understand what we are passing. I promise that I will tell you the true story later, but still there are so many people that are still fighting for their lives, I had so many people fighting next to me. So please tell the true story, and don't just create headlines. Tell the true story, because I just did my duty." So this is this is the story of Inbal Lieberman. We still have a time, and we are going. We spoke about Sderot, the biggest town next to the Gaza Strip, with 35,000 people living there now. By the way, all this town is empty of people right now. All of them were evacuated to different cities, to hotels, to people's houses. And you can see here the little school that was established in the Ma'abara, in this little camp that was built for the first families settled there in 1951. People who came from Kurdistan and Iran were the first families. Then North Africa, Morocco, Romania, during the 50s. The town got bigger and bigger. And then until in 1991 came a big the big aliyah from the Soviet Union, with many people who could not leave the Soviet Union before, and after its collapse, 1 million of them came to Israel, and many of them settled in Sderot. And this is the Sderot recently. You can see the construction, the building, the cranes in the distance. And because of the distance to Gaza, Sderot, every building and every house will have a bomb shelter. So you can see these lines here with those single windows, smaller windows. These are all bomb shelters. They have the windows have iron door to lock in case of attack. And in other days, it can be used like a room, usually a small room. And usually they do the work, and even if a rocket crash directly on them, only rarely something will happen to the people inside. I'm not talking about traumas and PTSD and the shock from the waves of the rockets, but physical attack. It saved many people who has in this area 10 to 15 seconds to find place for shelter. You can see how those shelters are being added to older buildings, to older apartments. Attached to them, a door is opened between the shelter and the apartment, and that happens about 10 years ago. When we understood that the problem of the rockets is getting only bigger and bigger after the disengagement from Gaza. And on the streets, also different solutions for to protect the children from. This is another bomb shelter, and the children who walk to school or to the playground. If the alarm goes off, they can find a quick shelter on the way. Again, the city is empty now. The terrorists were running in the streets and driving their cars inside the streets in a scenario that we never imagined. But this was the reality of them before the 7th of October. Here we have a little view of, again, of Gaza from a hill of Sderot called, that used to be called the Hill of Kobe. This person here is Kobe Harush. Kobe is the head of security, the military coordinator of Sderot. And for 20 years, he used to climb this hill to look at Gaza and to tell the army, the Israeli army, where the rockets are coming from and where are they heading before the radars and the electronic systems were developed. That today they say immediately, they send the messages immediately to each part of the country. If a rocket goes to Tel Aviv today, there is a radar that finds it immediately and say it's going into Tel Aviv. But before these radars were operated, Kobe was one of the people watching into Gaza, in Sderot, running after to find where the rockets fell in Gaza, to see if somebody is wounded, to try to save life. He described the difficulty of seeing the injured people and the dead people from different attacks. And this hill was named Givat Kobe, but now lately it was changed to the Hill of the Four, after 4 soldiers that died in 2018 in a terrorist attack by Sderot. So this is again the view of Gaza from Sderot. This is less than a mile away. And again in Sderot, the same group of students, group of student leaders, not necessarily Jewish. Some of them are Jews, some of them are not, most of them are not, coming to see Sderot, and here they we visit a playground. You can see this caterpillar on the right, colored in green and yellow. This playground has 3 caterpillars scattered around. And this caterpillar is not just a part of the playground, it's a bomb shelter, which is designed for the children to also enjoy it. But when you have to run for shelter, in 15 seconds, you run and enter the shelter, which looks like this. You shouldn't stand by the door, but next to it. And here is another playground that was established by the JNF, indoor for rainy days, an area which is surrounded by, completely surrounded by bomb shelters. The children can play, and then if the alarms goes off, they could run into shelter. Then this climbing wall was designed especially so the children don't climb up. It's not tall, they climb to the sides, because they calculated how much time it takes to a child to jump off the wall and what height it's okay to jump off if they have to run for shelter. So the wall is not tall, but the children can climb only to the sides. This is we have another maybe 5 minutes to go, and this is a photo of Yamit. Yamit is the town that was established south of Gaza in the Sinai Peninsula after the 6 Days War. You can see quite a big town with many buildings and families who live there until the evacuation in 1982, according to the peace agreement. These people believed that they will be allowed to stay. And until today, many of them say there was a way to live there. It's just such a tiny part of Sinai. Maybe there was a way. Many of the people left, chose to leave and left on their own. Some of them were taken by the army away forcibly. And you can see here one of those pictures of the IDF soldier crying for because she is taking this little boy away from his house. And the press is around. And this picture that we began with, this is a picture of a family in Moshav, a village, Nativ HaAsara. The Nativ HaAsara was also in Sinai. Most of the people left, and before 1982, the village was destroyed later. And they moved to the north of the Gaza Strip. So from the south of the Gaza Strip, they moved to the north, not inside the Gaza Strip, but just next to it. And here, a few words by Dani Tzidkoni that were published in a newspaper, Davar, in the days of the re-establishment of Nativ HaAsara. And he says, when we came here for the first time, we felt at home, almost. The sand is the same sand, the sea, the same sea. The people are the same people, and the beginning, the same beginning, almost. Less young, less innocent, more polite. And again, we make the desert beautiful. Anew, fields are sown, houses are built. We try for grass. With determination, we repeat it all from the beginning. The daily struggle to succeed, to profit, like the first time. This time, the beginning is not exactly a beginning, and not exactly a continuation. This time, Nativ HaAsara is a revival. And so this is the revival of Nativ HaAsara in 1982. And here is Nativ HaAsara before the 7th of October. This is a visit that you come, you can see the wall that is beautifully painted. This is a wall that is here against missiles and shooting from the Gazan side. And look how beautifully they painted it so it will not disturb the eye too much. And here we came to visit Tzameret Zamir that you can see her here on the left, which established a project of decorating the wall on the Gazan side. So the people of Gaza will see a message from the wall, from the people of Nativ HaAsara. Here is just in front of her home. This is the bomb shelter for the children in the bus stop. The graffiti on the wall is saying, poetically saying, the window is getting smaller and smaller. The doors are shutting in front of me. My name is not Alice, and this is not the Wonderland. And after you walk in the street of Nativ HaAsara, this is a tour of Hadassah women. We go with the buses to the other side of the wall. It's not inside the Gaza Strip, it's facing the Gaza Strip. This is the protective wall that protects the village from the shooting. And it's not only gun shooting today, it's also missiles, anti-tank missiles that are being shot at houses. And you can see behind them the project of Zamir. Here you can see she's a ceramic artist. So she makes these pebbles of ceramics, and every visitor that comes get a little bit of ceramic glue, and slowly stamping them on the wall to form this statement, Nativ HaAsara, which means the path of the 10, also named after 10 soldiers that were killed in 1971. Nativ is a path. Nativ Asara, the path of 10, is showing here the path to peace. So if the Gazan people are looking at this wall, this is the message that they get. Nativ Asara, 21 members of the village were murdered by Hamas terrorists on 7th of October. Others were kidnapped into Gaza and are still being held there. And here a few pictures of, I will not go deep into it, but a few pictures of the volunteering that is happening because of all the Thai workers that used to work in the fields are gone from Israel. Most of them went back to Thailand, and the Israelis in thousands are going to volunteer every day to save the vegetables, to plow the fields. Once all the workers are gone, you can see the people are older people many times. The younger are with families or with or in the army, and the older people are going to volunteer and to save the vegetables that may rot in the fields because of the war. And this is 7 a.m. The volunteers are coming to work, and from here they will be distributed according to the need of the farmers, thousands of thousands every day. Wayne, I think we have 4 minutes left. We can go on.
Shahar, thank you so much for the touring. Let's. I want to give you the opportunity to before I make the closing announcements to share by way of appreciation and recognition that the heroism and the agony continue for many families now. And I want to give you an opportunity to share the images of people who we are praying for their safety, praying for their families as we speak, and as we certainly in America prepare for Thanksgiving and gathering around with our families. I think there's really a heaviness in our hearts and a need and a recognition for those families who, as you started the program, is saying you appreciate what you have in your own household, but right now there are many heavy hearts, and we want to acknowledge that and share our love and concern for those individuals and those families.
Yes, as you say, here in this video, you can see I took my family also to pick some vegetables, not by Gaza, because you saw my little children and Romy, the daughter of the farmers of this farm. But as you say, I would like to jump to the end of this presentation and to end up with the prayer and the demand, not just the prayer, of the 243 people that are being held by the Hamas terrorists in Gaza today, babies, children, pregnant women, elder people that are held there after 1,400 people were murdered, brutally murdered. These children are still being held there, many of them without a parent. Some of them babies, which are 10 months old. And now he was this baby that you can see here, Kfir on the left, was taken 9 months old, but now he's more than 10 months old. You see this beauty, this innocence, and you ask, how is it possible that these children are being taken from their families and held by terrorists all on their own? And we call, bring them home now. We demand that.
Shahar, thank you so much for this presentation and for ending with the recognition of that the work remains to be done to save these these precious souls. And we will, as you say, continue to not only pray, but to demand and to act and to keep their plight very much alive. I know there have been a march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. There have been rallies. There have been various forms of recognition to keep their plight in the public eye, which is so critical in the global public eye and the media. I want to acknowledge with as we end this episode today that my colleagues in New York and coming from Israel have created an event in New York. It'll be this Monday on November 27th after the Thanksgiving holiday. We'll put up the information on the screen. Obviously, American Israel Friendship League has an annual event that we've had that will have a very different character and flavor this year. If you happen to be in New York and are able to join us and to be present with us in person, please take a look at the website link that's on the slide on the screen today. If you're not, you have other friends that'll be in New York, please pass the information on for them. We'd love to have you included in this. We will share more about some of the specifics afterwards for those that are not able to be there. But for now, please accept our invitation, even at this late date, to be able to have your company to be a part of this ongoing struggle on behalf of the hostages and the many needs in Israel. Shahar was showing the agricultural needs continue. We're aware of and will report on more efforts going forward with our colleagues in Israel, how you can become involved, how you can be influential and volunteer time and efforts as well. We will be off from our regular schedule now for a little bit, but we are back on December 6th. So we hope that you will join us with an incredible program by a group called Banot, who before October 7th were doing remarkable things in Israel for the advancement of women, but they, like many other sectors, many other individuals, many other leaders, like Inbal, who we learned about on this episode today, and the incredible contributions that women are making to Israeli society, that the advancement of women in Israeli society is a priority. Banot has done some incredible activities since October 7th at the United Nations and elsewhere to press other women's activists and feminists around the world, not only in Israel, to help address this ongoing challenge of the hostages. And we hope you'll be with us. We hope to have better news for you by December 6th. But this is an ongoing concern, an ongoing challenge, an ongoing pivot and response from Israeli civil society. And we hope you'll join with us. So for all of us here at America Israel Friendship League, we want to wish you and your families, for those celebrating, a meaningful Thanksgiving, a season of gratitude that is colored by the stories and the losses from this current plight of the Israeli people and the Jewish state. This has been a difficult period, but in difficult periods, you want your friends close and together, even when we're physically separated. We thank you for being with us. We hope you'll hug your families. We hope you'll continue to think about the hostages and wish everyone a safe week. Thank you, Shahar.
Thank you.